What worries me is that there seems to be a two-tier system of free speech here, where it's free speech for people who attack transgender people and set themselves up as victims.
The Graham Linehan story really makes me nervous on my own account. I had a completely selfish reaction to that story because I'm worried that given what I have put into print, I could be arrested.
In the wake of Graham Linehan's arrest, you posted this: "Let this be a sage warning to those who think it's okay to have views that are hateful towards trans people. Your time is coming." And you had some emojis: a clock, an ambulance, and a coffin. If you don't mind me saying, I think you're a flaming hypocrite, because you are clearly inciting violence, and in fact that's a clear demonstrative death threat against Graham Linehan. The state of free speech in the UK has become a matter of global debate, nowhere more so than in the United States. Many guests of Joe Rogan have highlighted the high number of arrests for posts on social media, for example. And Vice President J.D. Vance has directly admonished the British government for, quote, heading down a dark path. The arrest of award-winning comedy writer Graham Linehan by armed police at Heathrow this week has only poured fuel onto that fire, making headlines across the world. Well, Linehan was arrested on suspicion of, quotes, inciting violence, close quotes, with 3 ex-posts about trans women back in April. The government says police should focus on streets, not tweets. London's Met Police say it's the government's job to change the law. The fact that so many of Linehan's critics have rushed to his defence is probably more evidence of the profound shift in attitudes on the trans issue and his previously untouchable status. In the US, the renowned public intellectual and author Malcolm Gladwell has renounced his own opinions on this issue and says he felt pressurised into holding them in the first place.
If we did a replay of that exact panel at the Sloan Conference this coming March, it runs in exactly the opposite direction. And it would be, I suspect, near unanimity in the room that trans athletes have no place in the female category. I don't think there's any question. I just think it was a strange. The reason I'm ashamed of my performance at that panel, because I share your position 100%, and I was cowed. The idea of saying anything on this issue, I was I believe in retrospect, in a dishonest way. I was objective in a dishonest way.
So have we now reached a watershed moment in this generation-defining toxic issue, or should we brace for a backlash from those who want to police our pronouns and our speech? Here to debate all this is Riley Gaines, the host of Gaines for Girls and a fierce campaigner for women's rights in sport. Dr. Helen Webberley, an expert and advocate in transgender healthcare. Author and journalist Laurie Penny. YouTube commentator Blaire White, and the award-winning author and journalist Lionel Shriver. Well, welcome to all of you. Lionel, let me start with you, because you've gone on a similar kind of journey to Malcolm Gladwell, in the sense that you have regrets yourself. You wrote in The Spectator in May, "I'm not proud of having kept my own counsel in print for 3 years, but this radical fad emerged inexplicably in tandem with the stern message that a single discouraging word would end your career. I delayed writing about this topic because I was cowardly and regarding my self-interest smart." And that tallies, Lana, with so many high-profile women that I know, journalists, actresses and others, who simply were not prepared to put their head over the parapet in the way that, for example, Riley was, or I was, but are now coming around to realising that that was, in its way, I guess, a form of moral cowardice, albeit one based on a reality that there was a mob coming with its pitchforks.
Yes, I should clarify that I first started sticking my neck out on the trans issue in 2016, and that made me unusual. I'm still not proud of not having written about the issue for a solid 3 years when it was all over the news. And at the same time, yes, we all got the message that if you said anything negative about this exploding phenomenon, your career was over.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated actually how that was successfully communicated, because it wasn't explicit. It was like in the tiny print. at the bottom of the contract. But it wasn't a joke. This was a correct perception, and I did take my career in my hands when I wrote a piece for Prospect, arguing that the whole business of a gender spectrum was based on gender stereotypes, and saying that if I do not believe that the soul has a sex, that your self is sexed, and it was aimed at the transgender movement. And since then, I have published any number of columns that have become more candid about my real views, and therefore the Graham Linehan story really makes me nervous on my own account. I had a completely selfish reaction to that story because I'm worried that given what I have put into print, I could be arrested the next time I come.
Well, that's the fascinating thing, because I don't find everything Graham Linehan says that funny. I can see some of it's a bit sharp. A lot of my favourite comedians are a bit sharp with their humour. He is a comedian. He founded one of the great comedies in British television history. So let me bring Laurie in here. Whatever you think of Graham Linehan, the idea that he was met by 5 armed police in the UK at one of our airports and arrested over 3 clearly comedic intended jokes, albeit, I guess, moderately offensive if you wanted to be offended, but they're jokes that he put on social media, that he is arrested by 5 armed police. Surely that sends a shudder down your spine, doesn't it?
Okay, I'm confused because what Linehan wrote was he directly encouraged people reading his Twitter feed to attack transgender women.
Well, he said...
No, okay.
Well, let me read it, so that those who haven't seen it will know what you're talking about. He said, if a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he's committing a violent, abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls. That is obviously intended to be a comedic mockery.
Is it?
Of
Can you explain?
Well, yeah.
What's funny about it?
Well, punch him in the balls is a joke. Because the point he's making is that this person is a biological male who is in a women's space, and that actually, to many women, is a lot more offensive and threatening than a joke on Twitter.
I'm sorry, I'm still failing to see where the joke is. Though I think this is... if we're saying this is a joke and not, an incitement to violence, I'm just not sure why it's funny. It's... I mean, one of
Okay,
the...
but here's my point. You may not find it funny, but the reality is that an arrestable offence to you? Is that something you feel comfortable that 5 armed police officers go and meet Graham Linehan off a plane at a London airport and arrest him?
Well, the law doesn't exist to police what does and does not make you or me
No, but
comfortable.
I'm asking you personally, do you feel comfortable with that?
Do I feel comfortable with
Yes.
people going onto planes and arresting people for things they put in the public domain, unless that person has committed a crime?
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's good at all.
So
No, excuse me.
No, but that's important. So you don't agree with what happened?
That doesn't mean I am a supporter of what Graham Linehan
I'm not
has
asking you to
say.
support him.
Nor does it mean...
As Winston Churchill... So listen, Laurie, as Winston Churchill said, the whole point of free speech, it's not about you agreeing with stuff that you agree with or accepting that. It's about actually allowing people to say offensive things and respecting their right to say them.
I thought the whole point of free speech was for everybody to be able to express themselves freely, not to say offensive things. I mean, I'm confused if all we're doing... Free speech surely has to mean more than just the right of bigots to say whatever they want and nobody to be able to say anything.
How do you police it then?
How do I police freedom of speech?
Yes.
Well, personally, in my personal life, how do I police it?
No, how would you propose we police it then, if you think there should be limits?
Look, what limit do you think there should be on inciting violence in the
I don't think
public
it incited violence. He was making a joke about the fact that trans women are biological men and therefore have male genitalia.
May I speak?
And a lot of women, by the way, find that really offensive and wrong, that they should be allowed in women's spaces.
May I speak?
Sure. US national debt is more than $37 trillion. And these are uncertain times for the global economy. It's enough to make you think. Maybe now would be a good time to buy some gold. Whether it's a hedge against inflation, peace of mind during global instability, or just sensible diversification, BIRCH Gold Group believes that every American should own physical gold. And they've created something special. Until the 30th of September, if you're a first-time buyer, BIRCH Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 in free metals on qualifying purchases. To start the process, request a free information kit now. Just text PIERS, P-I-E-R-S, to 989898. Make right now your first time to buy gold and take advantage of a rebate of up to $10,000 when you buy before the end of September. Text my name, Piers, to 989898. Claim your eligibility and get your free information pack. Again, just text Piers to 989898.
There are two separate issues here. One is whether or not you think that Graham Linehan committed the crime of inciting violence. The second is, do you think that that should be a crime? There are two very separate issues.
And what's your answer to those questions?
To which of the questions?
Both.
Do I think that, well, it's a bit difficult to say what I think about whether or not Graham Linehan committed a crime because there's an active case going on. In fact, there are several
That's a separate case.
Can I please
separate
finish?
to this.
If you want me to answer, can you please let me finish?
No, but that's I'm just pointing out.
If you want me to
he's
answer,
in court tomorrow for a separate
offence.
Separate thing.
This is not even the first or second time that Graham Linehan has come to the attention of the police for posting extremist content online. This person. Let's be serious here, and I think quite a lot of your guests might not have taken the time to actually read what Linehan has said. I'm one of many, many people who Linehan has personally threatened with legal action because I have said something rude to him.
What have you said to him?
I said I thought he was a bigot, and I do.
Right. So you have a right to call him a bigot.
Absolutely.
Of course,
but Graham Linehan doesn't think... He literally wrote on his blog that I do not have a right to say that. So he clearly thinks that free speech is for some people and not others. But what worries me is that that attitude seems to be reflected by the public at large. The public at large seems to be not outraged at all when transgender people are attacked physically and attacked and insulted in the media. When people are... No,
why,
may I
Laurie?
please finish?
Well, you can. At some stage, you do have to finish.
Would you like me to finish, or are you just going to say what you want?
There has to be a time limit. We've got 5 guests.
Of course. What worries me is that there seems to be a 2-tier system of free speech here, where it's free speech for people who attack transgender people and set themselves up as victims. But when transgender people like me are attacked in public, are attacked either physically or harassed. Graham Linehan is on trial for physically harassing an 18-year-old
we can't talk about the trial. As you know.
We can talk about what he's on trial for, which is physically harassing an 18-year-old girl and smashing her phone.
Allegedly.
This is allegedly.
Sorry, just to be clear.
Allegedly.
Just to be clear, he is alleged to have committed some offences for which he...
Physical offences.
Which he has denied, OK?
He's denied smashing this girl's phone.
You're very careful to police language. Just police your own language.
What am I policing?
But you just accused him of being guilty.
But accused him of being guilty of...
You said he did it.
Of physically harassing somebody.
He has denied it.
Well... I'm sure he has. I think he's allegedly...
Well, if you understand British law, you'll know that he's innocent until proven guilty.
Of which of the many criminal cases against...
Of what you've just said. You just said he harassed somebody. He's denied it. He's been accused of it. He's denied it. He's going through a formal process in a courtroom. You've just convicted him. So you should withdraw that.
I don't have the power personally to convict a person.
You just said he was guilty.
But I don't have the power... That's different from convicting
You're
somebody.
very wary about policing his words. You're not so worried about policing your own. You just convicted him of a crime.
I don't think that's actually literally the case.
You said...
I think you're just wrong here.
You said
Morgan.
Let me explain. Listen, I was a national newspaper editor for 10 years. I understand the law very, very well. You just said that he harassed and did this to this woman. But that's what he's accused of.
Well, if I did that, so let me clarify. Graham Linehan is accused of harassing an 18-year-old girl. He is accused.
But you accept
Graham Linehan has not been convicted of violence against a transgender person. But crucially, not in the same way that you and I haven't been convicted of violence against a transgender person.
Actually, it's exactly the same way. Exactly the same way.
I think it's quite different.
No, it's exactly the same way. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty. That's the point of a law. Let me bring in Riley Gaines here. Riley, you and I have talked a lot about this whole issue. It just seems to me what Malcolm Gladwell said is so significant because he's basically done a complete U-turn on this and understood that even he, one of the smartest brains in the world, got kind of traduced into thinking it was perfectly normal and acceptable for a biological male identifying as a trans woman to compete in women's sport. You yourself, having lost out to a trans athlete in a swimming pool at a high level, understood immediately from that experience that men have superior biology to women. Therefore, if they compete against women, it is grotesquely unfair because they have superior muscle mass, power. Well, surely, hang on. I'll come to you in a second, Riley.
Sorry, I apologize.
Sorry, no, Laurie, just to be clear, you're not disputing men have superior biology, are you?
Superior, I just think it's quite offensive to say that an entire
Not
class
really.
of people have superior.
There's a reason in the Olympics we have women's sport and men's sport. It's because the men, if they competed against the women, would win everything. Do you understand that?
Okay, I just question your use of the word superior to describe male biology.
Superior biology, their biology, their physical
physically
biology
superior
means
to women.
when they're competing in sport, they have superior biology. They have an advantage from their bodies. Do you understand? You accept that?
Let me clarify this. I think superior in strength and athleticism,
Yes.
typically,
Thank you.
and how far they jump and how high they can jump, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If we're talking about biology, I'm about 38 weeks pregnant now, and I would certainly say that my biology compared to my husband's in that way is superior.
And I would agree with you. So why don't we just accept that what I was talking about was superior physical biology in terms of competing in sports. Men are faster, they're stronger, they have more lung capacity and so on. That is why we separate the sexes. That's what we should all agree.
110%. Yeah, I don't take offense to the word superior. Certainly, I believe there are things women are superior at, and certainly I believe there are things that men are superior at. I don't think this is something to, again, say that women are less than necessarily, but just to, again, reiterate the fact that women and men are very much different. I don't think there's anything wrong in saying that. And so to your point, Piers, this comment that was said by Michael, you said now he's come out and kind of done this full 180 here. I don't think he ever believed that women or that men should be in women's sports. He's just now finally courageous enough, if that's the word you can even use. It's amazing to me. It requires courage to publicly declare that men and women are different. What a sad state that we are living in, where it requires courage or bravery to say such. But that's the case that many, many people have felt over the past, I would certainly say 5-6 years. But as indicated, really, this has been going on much longer than that. So that's my thoughts on that. The majority of, I'll speak for the American people, the majority of American people, as proven by every single Gallup poll, whether even in states like California, I believe they had 40% of voters turn out in support of Donald Trump. Even still, I believe it was 70% of people said that men shouldn't be in women's sports. So this is like a no-brainer for most people. I want to go back really quickly to what we're talking about on the free speech side of things. If you can remember, Piers, I was physically attacked, like violently attacked by a mob of radical, psychotic, crazy trans activists who kidnapped me and held me hostage for 5 hours, all while our police force sat and did nothing, as they said they couldn't. They weren't allowed to, because they weren't allowed to be seen as anything other than an ally to that community, or else they would lose their jobs. So I absolutely and entirely reject the notion that there is a double standard that is in favor of people like me. That is not at all what we have seen. Again, people who unapologetically speak the truth.
No, what we've seen is people like you and J.K. Rowling and other women who put their head over the parapet to fight this battle to protect women's rights. And that's what the battle was really about. It wasn't anti-trans. It was with some people. There are transphobic people out there. I don't doubt that for a moment.
Well,
there are always. But here's the point I'm going to make: is that of course there are, but actually the core debate for me certainly, and I think for you, was that you wanted to protect women's rights to fairness, equality and safety, and particularly in the sport issue, but also in the case of, for example, the male rapist in Scotland, who suddenly, having been convicted, puts his hand up and says, I'm now a woman, and gets put in a women's prison, which led to the series of events that led to Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister, actually having to resign, because people were like, you're a woman, you're allowing this? You're putting the fox in the hen coop to attack other women because he just put his hand up to game the system? That is what offended people. Everybody knows how much I enjoy my tea, and I'm very happy to say that today's show is sponsored by PIQUE's Pure Fermented Teas. These are not your average brews. They're sourced from 250-year-old wild trees in the Himalayan foothills, which are untouched by modern farming. No pesticides, no fertilizers, just nature at its best. Pure delivers a full spectrum of prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics, just like the fermented foods found in longevity hotspots. It comes in crystal form, so there's no messing around. Just dissolve, sip, and feel the difference. It's trusted by health experts, including Casey Means and Dr. Mark Hyman. There's teas for all occasions, and they all support your gut health, metabolism, and cellular renewal. The next time you put the kettle on, ask yourself, is my tea working as hard as me? PIQUE's Pure Fermented Teas for the gut of a Brit and the longevity of a Himalayan monk. Get 20% off for life, plus a free frother and glass beaker with the Pure Bundle. Visit peaquelife.com/peers. That's Pique, P-I-Q-U-E, life.com/peers. You put your hand up. Very polite of you, by the way. Thank you. What would you like to say?
I'm just confused because I was told I was being brought on to discuss a free speech issue and an issue about whether or not it should be okay to incite violence against a protected minority group like transgender people. But we seem to now be talking about whether or not it's okay to be transphobic.
Oh, no, because the whole... Let me explain that. No, hang on. Let me just explain, because Laurie's raised a point. The point is that Graham Linehan's become the poster boy, for abuse and shaming and attacks and vilification
He does do that a lot.
and cancellation. He has become the poster boy for this stuff for many years. It's ruined his life, it ruined his marriage, it ruined his career. And at the core of his argument was that biological men who identify as trans women should not be in women's spaces. And I agree with him, and Malcolm Gladwell agrees with him, and Riley Gaines agrees with him. Now we have got...
Can I jump in?
Well, I was going to bring in Blaire, because Blaire, you're a YouTube commentator, but you're trans. What do you think about this? I mean, were you offended by Graham Linehan's tweets?
Not at all. First of all, I have to say that it was fascinating listening to you guys talk about free speech as a concept, like as Brits, coming from an American. You know, when she said that she didn't know that free speech covered offensive speech, that's absolutely what it covers. That's the most important part of what it covers.
That's not what I said.
And what did you say exactly then?
I said that I wasn't aware that it was only people who have particular bigoted views who are protected by the notion of free speech. The notion of free speech should protect...
I don't think that's how it's being applied because he was
though.
arrested.
No one's argued that, but the actual point of free speech is you have to tolerate and allow people to say things you don't like. That is the point of free speech. 100%. Unless you're actually, inciting a crime, and nobody could have read that Graham Linehan tweet and not thought he was just cracking a rather crass joke.
I think a lot of people did think that.
If anything,
well, Blaire's a trans woman. Why don't we let her answer?
I'm also transgender.
I know.
Go ahead.
Which trans are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm non-binary.
What does that mean?
I'm a non-binary person. I use they, them person.
So
sorry, are we going to spend... do we really want to spend the rest of this discussing my personal
You're the one who
journey?
mentioned it. I didn't even know.
Well, now you know.
Okay, so now I know. I'm just asking you what that means.
Like, do you really want to discuss this?
You raised the subject of yourself being trans. I'm simply asking
Can I finish my point?
No, wait
it's
one
always
second.
a non-binary
wait 1 second.
person
It's actually really
over
interesting.
A transsexual.
It's really interesting to me. You raised it, not me. I didn't even know. So now you've raised it. What does that actually mean? What do you mean you're non-binary?
Are you really, really just going to...
Can you explain it?
Are you going to cut Blaire off now?
I'm just asking you to explain. I'll come back to Blaire in a moment.
Well, you were the one that cut me off, sis. But I will say that...
Hang on 1 second, Blaire. Sorry, Blaire, wait 1 second. I just want to ask, what do you mean by non-binary?
When I say I'm non-binary, I'm expressing my identity in a way that I have a right to do. I'm sorry?
What's your sexuality?
My sexuality. This doesn't have to have anything to do with my
sexuality.
Actually,
the UK government now says that people are male or female. The British Prime Minister says people are male or female.
I don't think the UK government should have the final say on how I express myself.
Well, they determine the laws of the country.
Treated.
I'm just curious what you mean by non-binary. What does that mean?
I'm curious. Firstly...
What are your pronouns?
They, them.
What does that mean? There's only one of you.
What? what does they, them, actually, they, them has been, the collective they has been used to refer to individual people for centuries and still is. So, I mean, if you don't understand basic grammar, that's on you. But
I don't really understand.
You do.
I don't understand. I've got to be honest with you. I don't understand the concept of what non-binary means, or why you would
Neither
use
do I, and I'm trans,
a plural pronoun to describe a singular person. That makes sense. To me, this is the problem with the whole woke thing. Is it's inexplicable. Nobody really knows what it means. I don't know what you mean by non-binary they, them. There's one of you sitting here, and you look to me female. You're a female?
Okay.
Are you a female?
If you don't understand what non-binary means...
Are you a female?
If you don't understand what non-binary means...
I don't.
Then I'm not sure you're in a position to lead a debate.
So just tell me. Tell me.
But if you can't explain it in simple language, then
what is it?
What's the point?
Well, explain what non-binary is.
I can tell you exactly what being a transsexual is. It means that my
gender identity is something other than man or woman. I'm a non-binary individual.
But you accept you're a female?
I don't think that I'm here to discuss the contents of my
You raised this whole thing. I didn't mention anything about what you were. You did. You said, I'm trans.
This has really become uncomfortably personal.
Has it? You said it, not me.
If you think this is uncomfortably personal, try undressing in a locker room with a 6'4" naked man.
Right, exactly. That's the point of this. It's like, what is uncomfortable?
We're having a conversation here. And I'm slightly offended because no one asked me my pronouns. So.
Exactly. I think we should get rid of all pronouns. I think they're ridiculous. Blaire, let me bring Blaire. Okay. Let me bring Blaire back. You'll be very patient, Blaire. Over to you. You're a trans woman. So let's get back to you.
So
you weren't offended by what Graham Linehan said, no?
No, I'm offended by the phrase arrested for tweets. You know, as an American, before anything else, the idea that that's something that's happening over there is scary, considering oftentimes what happens there is only a couple years off from happening here, as is the trans kid issue, which is something I've stood against since the beginning. You guys are sort of the canary in the coal mine as far as what laws are coming here. And it really makes me value the free speech that we do have here, and how, you know, even the most uneducated American typically knows that free speech does cover offensive speech. And for me, I'm disgusted that trans is used by the state as a means to bully people and clamp down on free speech. Free speech is infinitely more important to me than anything to do with trans, and certainly non-binary. I'm in the same camp. I don't even know what it means. Okay. And for me, you know, I don't know if any other trans people have like publicly stood up for Graham, but I'll do it. I don't really know much about him. My understanding is he's much more famous across the pond, so I don't know, but I saw the tweets, and the closest thing to inciting violence was the joke, like you said, kicking someone in the balls. And so it's kind of like, it's scary that this conversation is even happening and trans people are being used as this weapon against people. Like, I never asked for that. I feel like here in America, I see it all the time. I feel like there's constantly new laws, new, you know, social codes being imposed on people that I didn't ask for as a trans person. No trans people I know asked for that, but it will always be a woman, you know, unfortunately sitting up under a camera calling herself non-binary, trying to advocate for things that should be in place that I supposedly am supposed to be grateful for.
But also, I think the interesting point
which actually just incite more hatred against trans people.
Right, and that I think is a concern. And Laurie, I would say to you, I don't give a damn what you want to identify as. Genuinely, I don't care. Right? If you want to use pronouns for yourself, absolutely fine. The problem I have, and what I've had in the last few years, is me being ordered to say things like they, them, which I find preposterous, or me not being able to ask you what is non-binary, and you professing to be offended. It's like,
no,
you know, I don't mind you identifying as all this.
I never said I was offended. Please stop putting
words
in my mouth.
You did. You said, I'm feeling really uncomfortable.
I said it was
now.
uncomfortably personal. I didn't say I was
offended.
offended.
But you raised the issue of your transgenderism. I didn't. I didn't even know you were transgender. Honestly, I
actually had a conversation with your producers beforehand.
I didn't know. I'm just telling you what I knew. I didn't know.
Okay.
I knew Blaire was. I didn't know you were. But my point is, though, I don't care. You can identify as anything you want. The debate here is twofold for me. One is that Graham Linehan has said some comedic stuff that some people find offensive, other people laughed at, and is now being treated like a serious criminal and being arrested. I think that's an abuse of his free speech rights, which shames my country. And secondly, I just think on this whole issue of transgenderism, I look at what Malcolm Gladwell said, and I do wonder how many people now feel that they were bullied and threatened by the trans lobby into not expressing an honestly held opinion about this issue. And that, again, is an infringement of their free speech, because they were being bullied and threatened and cancelled, like Graham Linehan and others, into not being allowed to say what they actually thought. And I think that's wrong.
Okay, so you think there's no distinction between the state actually intervening, the police intervening to police people's tweets, which I'm really not comfortable with, honestly, since you asked, and people being criticised on the internet? You think that people shouldn't criticise people for saying transphobic things on the internet? They should, because that's bullying.
Well, it depends what you think is transphobic. You see, what the argument Malcolm Gladwell and I think Lionel made and others, and I saw it many times, J.K. Rowling's a good example. I don't think J.K. Rowling's remotely transphobic. I'm certainly not. I want trans people to have exactly the same rights as me. But my problem is where the trans activists wanted to erode women's rights in the process of promoting trans rights. Today's show is brought to you by Oxford Natural, makers of the Optimum Day and Optimum Night all-natural supplements. Thousands of Brits and Americans are already taking them with incredible results. Optimum Day is designed to boost your energy and support weight loss throughout the day. Optimum Night helps you relax and get deep, refreshing sleep. And don't just take their word for it. Here are just a few of their success stories. England football legend Michael Owen lost 40 pounds. Robbie, the face of AFTV, dropped over 100 pounds. Linda, a top law firm executive, lost 50 pounds. And Anita, an immigration lawyer, shed 60 pounds. To watch their full stories and find out more, scan the QR code on your screen or visit oxfordnatural.com/Piers. And here's the best part. Use the code PIERS, P-I-E-R-S, and get 70% off your first order. Get 70% off with the promo code PIERS. Let me bring in Dr. Helen Webberley here. What did you think about Graham Linehan's tweets?
Well, you called them moderately offensive to some. I think to the trans community at large, Graham Linehan has been exceptionally offensive. And when we talk about inciting hatred, the trans community are 4 times as likely to be the victim of a violent crime than cisgender people. And that is increasing, and it has increased over the last decade that your other guest was talking about. And so we have a problem. And you call it free speech, but is it free speech when, for example, he is saying that call the cops, because actually you call the cops when someone's committed a crime. So he's inferring that transgender women in a women's toilet have committed a crime, which they haven't. He's talking about encouraging people to punch them in the balls, which you find amusing, but it's not. It's encouraging violence.
So just to be clear, okay, Dr. Webberley, just to be clear,
online,
right? Just to be clear, though, you don't think anyone should post stuff which is potentially encouraging violence?
It's the long history. He's been.
No, I'm just asking you, just as a general, hang on, just as a general, hang on, Dr. Webberley, as a general, let me just ask a simple question. As a general principle, that's all I'm asking. Do you think it's wrong that people should not incite violence on social media? Is that what you're saying?
The general principle that we're very clear on in the United Kingdom is that minority groups, and they're listed, people with a disability, people with sexuality, race, religion, transgender identities. We are inciting hatred against that minority.
No, that wasn't my question. My question was whether you felt that people should be allowed to incite violence on social media.
Towards a minority group, absolutely not.
So you can incite violence against other people.
What about everyone else?
You can incite violence against other people. So you're only protected from violence if you're in a minority group.
Law,
is that your position?
I don't want it.
Sorry, that's not the law. It's actually, sorry, hang on, don't all talk. I've got this. Dr. Webberley, it's not the law. The law protects everybody, minority and majority groups, from threats and incitement of violence. And the reason I'm asking you, and you probably are ahead of me here, aren't you? Because yesterday, in the wake of Graham Linehan's arrest, you posted this. Let this be a sage warning to those who think it's okay to have views that are hateful towards trans people. Your time is coming. And you had some emojis, a clock, an ambulance, and a coffin.
Well, actually, Piers, it's a police car, so not an ambulance. But the coffin...
And a coffin. And a coffin.
Yeah, well, if you want me to say...
So you want Graham Linehan dead, do you?
That coffin signifies the end of this behaviour is coming. The end of this...
No, it doesn't actually. So your time is coming. Clock, police, ambulance, and a coffin emoji.
Well, you realize Graham could say by tweeting punching someone in the balls could
Yeah,
insinuate.
Dr. Webberley, I think, if you don't mind me saying, I think you're a flaming hypocrite because you are clearly inciting violence. And in fact, that's a clear demonstrative death threat against Graham Linehan. You're urging your followers, your time is coming towards people like him, followed by a clock, and you say it's a police car, and a coffin emoji.
But
so
surely,
if you don't mind, I won't take any lectures about language towards minority groups, as you put it, who seem to be so protected, but nobody else is from threats of violence and stuff, because you're literally wanting him dead.
If you want to
you'd say he has a right to
Hang on, I didn't ask you. I asked Dr. Webberley.
I'm a doctor. I don't want anybody dead. But what I tell you, what I want the
posted
end of,
a coffin.
What I want the death
You posted
of
a
is this
coffin.
terrible,
Your
terrible
time is
situation
coming.
that we have in the United Kingdom and further afield.
Yeah, I think it is terrible, but I think your own behaviour is terrible, and therefore you are a hypocrite, aren't you?
Well, you said that before, and it didn't rile me last time. You can say it again if you like.
Didn't rile you, but everyone agreed with me.
If you were talking about the movement, you would say the time is coming. You were referring to a specific person when you say your. That is like a possessive, like pronoun there. Your time is coming. I know we had the pronoun
debate. Shall I read it to you? I don't know whether you've got it in front of you or not. To all those who think it's okay to have views, okay? Those views are coming to an end, and that time is coming to an end. And I am absolutely delighted that the police have taken action against somebody who is blatantly transphobic.
So should they take action against you?
What about the dissenters at the Pride protests who call to kill all TERFs? I'm looking at a sign right now. It says, every time you punch a TERF, a trans kid gets more rights. Would you say this person should be met with armed guards at their front door as well? Or people who call to kill
I don't know who that is. I don't think that's...
Let me explain what that was about. Hang on, let me explain what that was about. There was a complaint in Scotland after a sign calling for TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists, which is a ridiculous phrase anyway, to be decapitated. That means have their heads cut off. This was a pro-transgender rights rally. So the question, Dr. Webberley, which Riley is rightly asking is, presumably, all of those people carrying that placard and laughing with it should all be arrested now for inciting hatred and violence. Should they or not?
I don't think inciting violence against any group, whether they are a TERF group or a transgender group, is acceptable.
What's worse, do you think, decapitating somebody or punching them in the balls?
I don't think either is acceptable.
Which one's worse? Which one is worse, do you think?
Unacceptable.
Which one's worse?
I'm not putting any store on which one.
Well, you're a doctor. You should know what is potentially more harmful. Severing somebody's head or punching them in the balls.
For people in this world.
Yeah, but as a doctor, give me your medical opinion.
Punching anybody or decapitating.
Right, but from a medical perspective, what is more dangerous, punching someone in the balls or decapitating their head?
Well, from my medical experience, I would suggest that decapitating was, but I don't really think
Okay, good. So we're agreed that they should all be arrested by 5 armed police each, yeah?
The armed police, you can say that, right? But I don't know whether you've been through Heathrow. They carry arms in Heathrow. I don't think that they really had the guns.
Actually, there are lots of unarmed policemen at Heathrow too. There's a completely spurious argument. There are many unarmed police at Heathrow. I've seen them, I've spoken to them. And there are armed police who are normally called because people are terrorists, not because they've cracked a joke on Twitter. Let me bring Lionel back in. So, Lionel, my kind of point about all this, there's a lot of hypocrisy. There's a lot of hypocrisy, by the way, on both sides. And there are transphobic people who genuinely hate trans people. But there are people like Riley, like me, who just feel that the trans activism has eroded women's rights to the point where it had to be stopped. And that actually it eroded women's rights to fairness, equality, and safety. How big a moment do you think this Graham Linehan moment is? Because I've been struck by the outpouring of support he's had, which he certainly hasn't had in the past, that the overreach by the state here about his right to have an opinion has now struck a chord with people in Britain who are just like, no, we're done with this.
I have to say, all the response I've seen, with very tiny exceptions, usually from activists, has been horrified. And that is also in the United States. In some ways, the response in the United States has been even more powerful because it's such a violation of American principles. And these are principles that we got from England, from the United Kingdom. But we didn't make up freedom of speech. The British did.
Yeah.
And therefore Americans are really upset to see our inheritance being corrupted and in fact destroyed. I mean, the United States, yes, does have a First Amendment for freedom of speech, and the UK does not. So the freedom of speech has never been exactly codified in the UK. And unfortunately, that has made it possible for the law to violate the UK law to violate the prime principle of liberal democracy, and that is equality under the law, that the law is equally applied to a prime minister and a homeless person on the street.
Right.
We all have to obey the same laws. Not in the UK anymore. This whole idea of having protected characteristics means that there are special laws for special people.
Yeah.
And that's the beginning of the end.
I totally agree. Let me bring Blaire back in. Blaire, I mean, you touched on something, and I think it's really important that most, like, I wouldn't say the word average trans people, because I don't think anyone's average, actually. But, you know, a lot of trans people that I happen to have talked to or discussed this with, that they're not interested in this kind of trans war against women's rights. They think it's put back trans rights. They think it's made trans people the subject of more mockery. It's made their lives, you know, in some cases intolerable because people laugh at them all the time because of this nonsense. Do you think we're going through a corrective period now where hopefully out of this, trans people can be let to just get on with their lives, hopefully equally, fairly, safely, but not at the expense of an erosion of women's rights?
100%. I think people are trying to navigate that nuance and understand we're all here together and have to figure out how to coexist. And the idea that the trans movement as a political movement was going to be able to get away with sex changes for children, men beating up women in women's sports, all the unfairness that people like Riley and other female athletes have come forward to talk about, the idea that there was never going to be any sort of swinging back of the pendulum from that. I mean, I've been warning against that for people my entire career, saying these are all nonsensical positions. Nobody can meet these expectations. If the expectation to not be considered transphobic is things like child sex changes, men and women's sports, no one's going to meet you there. And I also have to say, you know, no offense to the two women on the panel who are on the other side of this, but with allies like you guys, who even needs transphobes? Who needs anti-trans people? Who needs anyone who hates trans people? The sorts of positions that you guys hold are the exact reason why there is a whiplash, a backlash against trans people. It's these nonsensical, you know, completely unprincipled positions. I mean, the idea that you guys can't even say, okay, it's not cool that like armed cops arrested somebody for tweets.
I did say that. I said exactly that.
Okay, but you couched it with, you know, being very vague about.
No, I said directly, and I will say it again. It is not okay.
But let me ask you this then, Laurie, because NBC News in America issued a correction for using the wrong pronoun in identifying the mass shooter who murdered 2 children and wounded many more during a mass at a Catholic school in Minneapolis. In an article on Friday, NBC News initially used male pronouns to detail how the killer, who was born male and petitioned for a name change in 2019, successfully amassed an arsenal of guns in the years before the attack. Why do we give a monkey's cuss about this person's pronouns when that person has allegedly gone outside a Catholic church and tried to murder as many children as they pray as they could possibly do?
Well, I believe that holding any group collectively responsible for the actual crimes that the horrible crimes that one member of that group commits, or anything any member of that group might do in the future. I think that is the essence of prejudice. I think transgender people are increasingly all treated as potential
So was it correct for
criminals.
NBC News to apologise for using the wrong pronoun about this mass shooter?
I honestly haven't been following this story.
Well,
more
I've
than
just read it to you.
I'm not as online as you.
I've just read it to you. The person identified as the mass shooter identified as a trans woman, right?
Well,
and was apparently misgendered by NBC News. My point is, have we not moved to a place where this is just garbage.
I don't think
where
many
a
people
major
care.
news network has to issue a public apology for getting a personal pronoun wrong for somebody who decided they want to identify in a different way. I think it's ludicrous. Riley?
It's worse than that. It's
Lionel,
getting
yeah.
personal pronoun right. I mean, I actually did my Spectator column on this. This tradition, and the BBC follows it, as well as the New York Times, of using people's so-called preferred pronouns, even in instances where they are mass murderers, is, you know, it's cloaked in deference. It's supposedly being nice to them, but it's worse than being nice. It is implicitly an endorsement of transgender ideology, so that it means, oh, we're not going to acknowledge this person's real biological sex. We're going to defer to their delusion. And that is to embrace an entire way of thinking which is unhinged and separated from reality. And so it's not a neutral thing to do, and it's not just a nice thing to do. And the same thing happened with NPR when they were interviewing Senator Amy Klobuchar, and she referred to this deranged killer as he, and the interviewer corrected her and said, we don't know the sex he is. We're not sure. Well, actually, we were very sure. It was already on the record that he was born male. And one of the things one of my problems with this whole movement is the way that it is imposing requirements on us to, you know, in using the pronouns that this person prefers, that we are being forced to lie. You know, you look at this person, he's a man, but you're required, this is compelled speech, as Jordan Peterson would point out, you're required to call him a woman, and you will be arrested. You will get police at your door in the UK if you observe biological reality in public.
Yeah, Dr. Webberley.
Yes, this is extremely offensive. I just want to put a line in the
It
sand.
is extremely. I'm
These
glad you
views
agree.
are
I'm glad you agree.
extremely
It is, yeah.
I
Dr.
don't
Webberley, I
care.
agree. You mean it's offensive that NBC News felt the need to apologise to
I think
an
it's
alleged mass
offensive
shooter?
that one of your guests is really openly denying the existence of people who reassign their gender.
Okay,
and
what
they're
about the
not being
topic, though?
respectful.
Change sex.
What about
And
the
they're not being
topic, though?
respectful of that person's
Look,
gender
can I say one
identity
thing?
and their pronouns.
Yeah,
I
Riley.
just want to put a line in the sand and say that I find that extremely offensive.
Oh my
And many
God,
people
I'm gonna
viewing
lose
Do you
my
this
find
mind.
do.
shooting lots of children in a church offensive or not?
But that crime is something that person did. And like you were saying at the beginning of your program, we have alleged and we have, you know, we have court cases to come. So I think we need to apply the same standards.
Sure, I just did.
But denying
What?
transgender identities is a very offensive thing to do. And
Dr.
this is
Oh my
what
God, we're
itself
talking about
incites
kids being murdered and we're
exclusion.
talking about misgendering being
Dr.
offensive. This is the
Webberley,
disgusting.
Do you believe that the shooter in this case is a victim?
Oh, for goodness sake, nobody
Sorry?
believes that.
Sorry?
Well, let's
because
Some
Dr.
people do.
Webberley,
Some
said,
people
there was an
do.
Do you
apology
believe that the
about
shooter in
about
this
calling
case is a
her a
victim?
him.
Stupid.
I think they're a victim.
Hold on. Just it's
Sorry?
really simple. Yes or no. Do you believe the shooter in this case is a victim?
A victim of what? A victim of what? Sorry.
Just a victim in general. I would love to hear your thoughts
A victim
on this.
of, you need to be a little bit more specific. This isn't a yes or no answer until you give me victim.
Well, do you think
of
that
what?
victimization ultimately drove someone to commit this crime?
I
like the
have
person-
no idea why that person that we think committed that
Well, I'm
crime.
looking at
committed
a
that crime.
tweet that you put out right here, and it says, "Shame on anyone centering the gender identity of the person who shot people dead in Minneapolis. The focus should be on what drives someone to such horror, the abuse, the hate, and the victimization. Ask yourself,
Oh,
have you
wow.
abused, hated, or victimized? That feels like you were trying to guilt trip someone like me into believing that I have blood on my hands because this person went out and shot a bunch of kids. And I will not be victimized or made to believe that I am a morally guilted person in this case because of the crime of what someone else did. That's a tweet
Nobody
that
thinks
you
you
put out,
are.
Dr.
Nobody
Webberley.
thinks you
Would
are.
you
Nobody's
like me
saying
to
that.
What you just said
Sorry.
in her tweet is ask yourself, have you abused, hated, or victimized?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm a doctor, and I've met many, many people who
I'm
have
a doctor.
been
That's the third time you've said that.
And victimized
woman.
and harassed.
I'm a
and
woman.
It causes difficulties. Sorry?
You said you're a doctor. It's the third time you've said that. If that's the qualifications to speak on a certain subject, then guess what? I'm a woman. That would disqualify, I mean, people from this panel, Piers from talking about this subject.
I thought you were asking me about the effects of bias, hatred, harassment, prejudice on the human psychology, which is what my tweet was about. And yes, they hurt, they cause pain, and sometimes they cause severe.
But you don't even know if, first of all,
let me just look. We run this, guys.
You don't even know if that's the case. You're inventing a narrative about this person before they did what they did, that it involves some sort of bullying. And even if so, in what world were these young Catholic children the perpetrators of that?
I don't think, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay, look, we run out of time.
Well, then what is the implication of your post? Because it's not making sense, so make it make sense. It sounded like you were making a victim out of the shooter.
I'll explain. The implication of my post is that people who incite hatred, incite violence, harass, show bias, prejudice, they have effects. It hurts. And at the moment, which is the topic we're talking about, is it hurts transgender people, and that's not nice.
Okay, let me ask.
But how is that even on your mind?
Unlike everybody else on the panel, Laurie's been putting her hand up very politely, I have to say, and I have to recognise the inherent politeness in your activity on this panel. I've just got a question though. So, is your position that anyone can identify as whatever they want?
Why not?
And it has to be respected by everybody else.
Well, I'd prefer that it was. It's good manners and being a basic, decent human being.
So if I said my personal pronouns are hot, hotter, hottest,
I would think you were silly.
Okay.
But sure.
See, well, that's a bit bigoted. But if you did know they were my pronouns, would you now feel compelled to call me that?
I would probably struggle to keep a straight face, but sure.
Because you think
if you really
because
wanted
you
that,
think it's ridiculous.
Do you want that?
Is it because you think it's ridiculous?
Should I call you hot hot?
Well, you call yourself they them.
Hang on.
Is that any more or less ridiculous?
I think people should be able to identify how they like, and I think we're here to discuss a serious issue.
You were mocking my choice of personal pronouns, weren't you?
Oh, is that actually your pronoun? Hot,
yeah,
hot?
it's in my Twitter bio.
Hot hot.
That's hot, hotter, hottest. Why are you laughing?
No. I think that's
funny.
Great.
It's my pronoun.
I think it's fantastic.
You're openly mocking me. You see how easy it is to fall into this trap. My point being, the moment you go down...
If you're offended, Piers, I'm really sorry.
I'm not offended. Of course I'm not offended. It was a joke. The whole thing's a joke. But to me, this is the problem with the personal pronoun thing, is that it works right to the point that someone goes, oh, right, you can identify as anything you want. OK, I'm a giraffe and my pronouns are hot, hotter, hottest. And people go, well, now you're being ridiculous. And I go, well, yeah, that's the problem. Is that if you allow limitless self-identity, limitless personal pronouns, and you get offended when people don't call you by what you think you should be called, and it's mandated on people, that in the end has the opposite effect to what you think. It doesn't lead to more respect. It actually leads to more open mockery.
It sounds like people here are very, very keen to be victims of like trans bullying and trans harassment.
I'm not a victim of anything, ever.
I don't think anybody here is a victim of that. Because
Who is?
I'm sorry.
Who's a victim?
I don't think anybody on this panel is a victim.
How do you know?
Actually, no, I don't know. Go ahead.
That's an amazing presumption.
Apparently, the shooter's a victim, according to the doctor here.
Well, isn't that just about the end?
That is not what she said. That's not what she said. Nobody is defending that, and I think it's
that's what I heard. So maybe it could be, recommunicated.
It is reprehensible. It is reprehensible to deliberately misrepresent people who are just trying to say their opinion.
All right, but Laurie, do you think NBC News should have issued a public apology for misgendering the mass shooter? Who's now dead?
I do not care, and nobody does.
Well, then why did they do it? Why did they do it?
I have no idea. I don't work for NBC.
Should they have been compelled to do it?
I don't care.
What's your view?
I don't know. I think my lack of thinking that this is an important subject is my view.
Fantastic.
My view is that we should...
So you actually agree with me? You don't care about personal pronouns?
I'm sorry. I just don't think this is the
fixation. You seem to care when I questioned you calling yourself they, them. You got very upset then. So my point is, if you don't care about personal pronouns, I'm with you. I care about the fact that kids got shot dead. That is
Are
important.
you suggesting that I don't?
No, I'm just saying that you cared about your own personal pronouns, but you don't care about this other person.
Do you think I should care about how a killer
I think
feels?
you've got to be consistent. You either think personal
This is
pronouns...
mad. This is absolutely
You either
mad.
think personal pronouns are a sacrosanct thing, and NBC News was right to be bullied and shamed into apologising for misgendering a mass shooter, or you don't.
That's a nonsensical argument.
No, it's completely logical.
The logical is that pronouns are either sacred or they don't matter at all.
They're
It's
either...
only two things.
People should
Only two
either be
things.
mandated to use them or not. NBC News
So
only apologised
there's
apologised because people kicked up a fuss that they had misgendered a mass shooter.
Okay, look, what is happening here is that Mr. Morgan is having a conversation with himself about...
Actually, I'm having a conversation with millions of people.
On one side, you're saying that you're inventing people who are mandating and bullying you, and then you're asking me whether or not I agree with them. This is not... I don't even need to be here because you've already decided what people like me think.
I don't know what... Well, we haven't even established what people like you are. Never mind what you think.
I'm so sorry to confuse you, but people like me exist. There are hundreds and thousands
And you know what?
of transgender people in this
You know what, Laurie?
girl. You're really
I
not.
respect you to live the life you want to lead.
Thank you.
Just don't bully everybody else into using language. If you don't care, then stop telling people to use pronouns. Simple.
Who
You don't
have
care.
I bullied? Who have I bullied? Am I bullying you?
I felt victimised, yeah, but I got over it.
I'm glad.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And thank you to all my panellists. It's an interesting debate, lots of nuances. As with all these debates, it's complicated. No one prevents it's easy. But I do think the reaction to the Graham Linehan fallout has been fascinating. You know, this is a guy who no one was supported a year ago, and now everyone is racing to support him, with a few exceptions, two of which are on my panel. But that's why we have people with different views on this show. Thank you all very much.
We'll see.
Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. The only boss around here is me. If you enjoy our show, we ask for only one simple thing. Hit subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in return, we will continue our mission to inform, irritate and entertain. And we'll do it all for free. Independent, uncensored media has never been more critical, and we couldn't do it without you.